Hi, my name's Bryan and I'm from SQLbloke.com, and I'm a SQL Server expert, and I have with me today Husain from AppAssure, and we're going to discuss a few issues regarding virtualization, and Naj is hopefully going to give me some ways to resolve the issues.
I hope so. Nice to meet you, Bryan. Nice to have you here.
So Naj, as a SQL Server DBA, one of the biggest problems that I face every day is actually my developers wanting a copy of production database. So they want me to take last night's backup and they want it to be restored back to their development environment so that they can actually be playing with yesterday's production database for their testing and things like that. So, you know, it costs me another server. It's another job that I actually have to to look at every day, make sure that it's actually worked. It's just one of those things. So, how can a virtualized environment help me in that thing? And
yeah, well, sure. So, replay app image is kind of a unique solution for this purpose. So, what we do is we kind of can protect these SQL workloads, and we have an agent that sits on the SQL server, and it kind of creates these incremental images of the entire server. So you kind of have an image on a replay server somewhere, which is just any Windows 2003 or 2008 box, that these images are kept on, and we compress and dedupe them so they're very efficient and has a real low storage footprint. And from that, since we have the whole server, we actually do a couple steps. One is we check the viability of the data. We actually attach the database on a local instance to do some backup testing. So we're not replicating bad stuff, right?
Yeah.
So the SQL database is in a known good state. And then from that, we can spin them off into virtual machines for you. So your testing guys, what they could do is they could set this up, push a button, and say, I want to create a virtual machine once a night, for example, every night at midnight. And we would take that, we'd protect the physical production workload, we'd spin that off into a virtual machine for you, and every 24 hours we just update it with the changes. So your developers can take it during the day, test it, use it, whatever they need to do, and then we'll come back the next day and update it with the latest changes.
so if I've only changed 20 megabytes worth of data on that production server, it's only going to update 20 megabytes worth of data?
That's it. It's just incremental.
That's fantastic, because currently, like on my 2 terabyte database, I'm actually having to restore the whole 2 terabyte database to give them where they were last night.
Yeah, that's very time consuming. So with replay, you just turn the feature on, it'll spin off the VM for you, and when you're ready to use it, it's just sitting there ready to be used.
So one of the other things that I find that's facing SQL DBAs, that most of our production environments actually on physical boxes, and most of the IT managers and CEOs are actually wanting us to move to virtualized environments. So
yeah, I think with replay, this is kind of a natural evolution to that, because with our customers, we see a huge trend moving from physical to virtual, either VMware or Hyper-V, regardless, we support them. So the idea is that we kind of give you a way to do that migration, number one, but we give it to you in a way that you can do it safely, so you can actually test what you're moving to. In some situations, depending on the workload, you have to be very cognizant of the fact of the performance impact that you're going to have in a virtual environment. Can it keep up?
Yeah.
Right. So with this approach, you can protect your SQL instance, great, and you can spin them off to a VM and try it and test it.
And so realistically, you're saying to me, I can protect my current physical environment, backing that up. I've pushed it off to my virtual environment, which is my new virtual server, and now I can actually test that as if it was my real production environment.
Yep. And the cool things like you get with VMware, you can put it in like host-only mode, so you're not impacting the network, right? Because it is an exact clone of the production environment. And you can put Active Directory in there if you want, just replicate the VM in there, and you have an encapsulated test environment now that you can test. You can upgrade in there, you can patch it, do whatever you need to do without impacting production.
So I've moved my whole physical environment now to virtual. So how does AppAssure work now in my virtual environment?
Well, it's the same thing. You still have to back it up, right? So the agents are going to be on the virtual environments as well, and our agents then would protect it. We'd do the backup testing for you. We'd give you the point-in-time images to recover
So you
from.
can back up both a physical SQL Server box and a virtual SQL Server box and you can restore them to another virtual box or another physical box.
Exactly. You can go in and out. You can do P to V, V to P, P to P, and V to V. So you can get all combinations.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So how long does it take me to spin up a virtual box from a backup image?
Well, it's pretty fast, actually. So what happens is when you do your first protection, we create something called a base image from the physical server to the replay server. So we take that, we compress and dedupe it. So typically you're going to get, that's going to compress between 60 and 90%. So it's going to be a big compression ratio. And then we'll check the databases to make sure they're sound. And then we'll spin that off to a VM. So typically you're going to have to rewrite the VM. So the first time you write it, it's going to take some time. So if you're writing 2T, it's just you're bound by network speed and disk write speed, right?
Yep.
So it depends on the environment. But then from that point on, we're just updating the changes. So in your example, if you just change 20 meg, right, or 20 gig even, we're going to only change 20 gig in the VM. So it's incremental over time then.
Yep. So you're going to give me a product where I can actually do my virtualized testing.
Yep.
You've got a product that basically enables me to test my virtualization strategy. So if I'm going to move from physical to virtualized servers and I want to test it, you've got a way through of being able to give me the same replicated virtual server every time.
That's right. And we have some customers that are doing this. It's cool because they actually can take particular workloads of question, like the mission critical ones, push them, protect them, push them into a VM, and they can really test if it's going to perform in that, say, in an ESX environment, for example. Typically, these are high end, so you're going to expend the infrastructure on an ESX environment. So they can test it, they can performance test it, make sure they have the right storage backend, make sure they have the right networking infrastructure, make sure they have the right load on the ESX box, and whether you're using vMotion or not, and whether that's an option as well. And I know I'm like selling for VMware, but it's a wonderful solution for that, and you can load balance the capacity, plan it properly, and when you're ready, you can make the transition.
Yeah, so it's more than just going out there and saying, okay, I've got these 2 physical boxes that I want to turn into a virtual box, and I need 200 gig of hard disk space because that's how much space they tell me. You're actually going to be able to give me that real virtual environment and be able to do all my stress testing for me, so I can actually set it up so that I can then do my stress testing so that I can work out whether that virtual environment is suitable for those 2 physical boxes.
That's perfectly right. And the cool thing about it is that you can maintain your physical environment while you're doing this testing with zero impact to your user base. So you're doing all this on the side, and you have an exact clone of your production environment without impacting your
and it's replicatable.
Yep.
It's because basically it's the same thing day in, day out that you're going to replicate across.
That's right.